Baby, YouTube. I just had to. Oh my God! Like, first of all, I want to say, Tubi is good, Netflix is good, but Prime is great. It is awesome. It's not even much acting, but the narration is excellent. And let me tell you something. It's something on Prime called Deadly Affairs, but somehow another it turned into another show. Because when I click on it, it's weird how it turns into another show. But anyway, so I clicked on Deadly Affairs because a couple of episodes were good when I watched in the past, but it's not even Deadly Affairs, baby. It's something called Passion Kills. That's the name of the show, and the name of the channel is Love Kills. So I don't know how it got mixed up in there. I don't even care because it's good, but just to let y'all know, if y'all have a TV like mine, smart TV, well, we all have them. But when you click on Deadly Affairs, free must watch pics, and it's a picture of Susan Lucci, just click on that, and it is so good. It's binge worthy. Girl, I was folding laundry, and I'm like, what? Say what? And I had to just talk about it because we're all susceptible to it. And I just want to let people know, like, beware of the signs. And I think it's just good to talk about. I talk about a lot of different movies. I know I talked about one movie from Tubi and that got a lot of views. This one, sometimes y'all are so with what I talk about, but this one is good, girl. So, boom. First of all, the first show that popped up was Who the Bleep Did I Marry? And then the next one was Passion Kills. So, Who the Bleep Did I Marry? So, there was two particular cases that caught my eye, and I was watching it. The guy had married a girl. The girl was a single parent. She lied and said she was raped. Now, fellas, I'm talking to my fellas now. If a woman that's raising a child, she's telling you she was raped, first of all, ain't nobody in their rightful mind is going to keep the baby unless if she's a crackhead. Like, and I'm so serious when I say that. Like, seriously speaking, if you get raped, why would you keep the baby, right? That's just too traumatizing. And then if that baby grows up and looks like the person who raped you, that just doesn't make any sense, right? But he believed it. He didn't know no better. And come to find out, it was a lie. So he found out she was crazy and he filed for divorce. She would have manic depression or show signs of bipolar. And he didn't know. He was in love. She was a pretty girl. His family was like kind of warning him, but he was in love, married to her for 3 years. They had 2 kids. He filed for divorce and won custody. And he found out that pretty much everything she said was a lie. And kind of felt sorry for him, And then I wanted to talk about it a little bit because from the first lie, and that's very important. Once somebody lies to you one time, it's usually not one lie. He found that a lot of things she told him was a lie. She told him she was never married before. She was married before. Found out that she was like, oh, he raped her, whatever. And then the mother, when he asked them, like her mom, she was like, well, let her tell you. So, so be careful of that. It's very important to do the research. Some single moms, they just want help. Some of them just want a baby daddy. You got to really check people out. And I think that's so important, and it's sad because you got a lot of single mothers out here, regardless of race, that they're not good people. They just, they're very toxic. And you got to be careful, guys, because, especially if the dude is not around, it might be a reason. Now, yes, you do have deadbeats, but she might be crazy. It's good to do the research. You know what I'm saying? The second one was really like, I felt sorry for the lady. The lady was adopted, and so she had a craving to have a family. And so she became susceptible to this sexual predator who became her husband. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit, the signs and so forth. So she had no idea he was a sexual predator, but little things like he didn't want to kiss her. So oftentimes, I've heard of this from women. Um, these men show their true colors before marriage, and they still marry them. I don't really understand, but from her perspective, she was lonely. She didn't have a family, and she wanted her own family. So be careful of that, and I can't stress that enough on this channel. It's okay to be single, but don't be desperate. And so she was desperate. And so even though there was little signs when they were dating, she still married and had 3 kids with him. So the first red flag was he was always out of town for work, right? Which he was working, but she was like, they were in a relationship, but she felt like she was alone. Ladies, fellas, if you are in a relationship and you feel alone, best believe he's going to do that when y'all married, because that is a sign that he does not want to be with you. And that's just, as blunt as it sounds, it's the truth. A person, think about it. We all have friends, right? Don't we spend time with our friends? Don't we like our friends? That's why they're our friends, right? So men are the same way. Or somebody you're dating, man, woman, whatever. They're going to make time for you if they actually like you. And it's simple as that, right? So this man never really made time for her, but somehow she fell in love. And I think it was just the craving of a family, because she said how she liked how he came from a very close family. And those of us that are only children, or our family is not that close, we tend to gravitate to people who have that, and we want that. And it's okay to have that, but don't be desperate. So this particular woman, she was just desperate for a family. And so it was, not so good, because he turned out to be a sexual predator. So the first red flag was he got fired for being accused of sexual misconduct or harassment. She took it as, the person's lying on him, because that's what he said, whatever, right? So he was let go, right? So another red flag was her coworker that she was cool with. She invited her to dinner, and he had hit on her, but naturally she believed her husband, and not, at this time they're married, so she believed her husband and not the friend. Well, come to find out, he was the one hitting on her. But she also, I think, believed the friend, because the friend didn't come to her, he did. So naturally, human nature, like, the person comes to you and says, yo, your friend was hitting on me. Yeah, you're going to believe it, because it's like, as my friend, if my man is hitting on you, why didn't you come to me as a woman like, yo, you got to keep your man in check? This is what... So I can understand where she's coming from, because not just because that's her man, but it's like, okay, but you didn't say nothing. If he hit on you, you should have came to me first. And the fact that, because like, putting myself in her shoes, if my man coming to me and he's like, yo, your friend is XYZ, I'm going to believe my man, not just because that's my man, but why didn't you come to me? So, and she didn't know her for long. So naturally, yeah, she's going to believe her husband. And then also, he was never affectionate to her, and she's a wife. So that's another thing. Like, well, he's not even affectionate to me. Why would he be affectionate to you? So that's why she believed it. Makes sense. Because this was not a man who, for me personally, I'm not dating a man that doesn't want to kiss me. And that's just me personally. Like, we're dating, we're in a relationship. And she said it. She's like, it was the worst feeling in the world that he wasn't around for work, and also he didn't want to kiss her. That's very strange for your dating. This is a relationship. It's not like you the side chick or whatever. We not talking about that. We talking about, this is your boyfriend. You guys are in a serious relationship and he doesn't want to kiss you. Red flag. Red flag. And so basically with sexual predators, sex is not something that is enjoyable. They want to be the dominant, and they want you to be the submissive. That's how a sexual which ties into the next story that I'm going to tell you. about Alfred Bloomingdale. Oh my gosh. The story is like this. Get your tea, get your crackers, get your wine, because it's going to get good after this. So, yes, back to the story. So this was with this lady, things just kept happening. So he got another job, and he was working with kids, and they accused him of being overly aggressive, and so he gets fired from that job. So finally he starts working for the police department, and oh my God, he gets accused of rape. He gets accused of everything. And so she finally realized, like, yo, this is a pattern with you. Like, you just keep getting fired from jobs, and it's you. Now, we all have conflict at jobs. I'm not saying that if somebody might not get along with their supervisor, or they getting lied on. I'm not saying that. But ladies, if there's a sequence of events of a man, he's getting accused of sexual harassment at work, he's getting accused of being violent towards women, please pay attention to that. This woman was not paying attention to it until she gets an email. And I feel like this was weird, because she gets an email from the woman, not the mistress or the side chick, but she gets it from the side chick's friend. I'm like, what kind of friend is that? Like, and if you think it's that bad, why are you friends with the hoe? Right? That's something that's just weird to me, but people do it. So this lady claimed she was the friend of the mistress, and he didn't even deny it. He was like, yeah, da 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 da. So at this point, she still like doesn't leave him until when he was a police officer and he got accused of rape. And basically he would tell women like they would have a warrant, for instance, and he would have sex with them, so he didn't arrest them and take them to jail or whatever. Accepting sexual favors, which by the way is illegal. It happens to the best of us. Sometimes you could stop an officer trying to give you a ticket, and he'll be like, well, if you give me your phone number, I won't give you the ticket. Please report that officer. They're using their power. They're using abuse of power. So all my ladies, most of us, we go through it, whatever. But seriously, if you're not interested in a cop, don't feel pressured. Try to get his badge number and report him. Something may or may not happen, but we need to, it's a very, very real thing. And this police officer used his power. He raped women. He would do things in exchange for sex. It was terrible. And so he finally went to jail for everything he was doing. And he's in jail now. And she has the 3 kids, and it ended on a good note. She was like, I'm not ashamed of myself. I'm ashamed of him, and I'm raising my kids and, doing the best I can. That's all you can do. Now, on to, that was Who the Bleep Did I Marry? This is called Passion Kills. Girl, this show was so good. I wanted to rewind it. I feel like I missed a part because I was confused as Vicki Morgan, like, what did she do? I don't feel like she did anything to deserve her murder. I need more details. But anyway, those of you who have heard of Bloomingdale's, the stores in New York, I don't know if it's anywhere in any other state, but there is a store named Bloomingdale's. I personally have never shopped in Bloomingdale's. It is too expensive. And the funny thing is, a lot of the things that they have is in other stores for much cheaper. So like Macy's and stuff like that. I shop at Macy's, Hollister, H&M. I like to look cute, but spending $500 on something that I'm only gonna wear one time, no, not interested. I have a fur coat, and I have buyer's regret for that. So yeah. But anyway, so in this particular episode of Passion Kills is about Alfred Bloomingdale. At the time, he was 54 years old, Vicki Morgan was 18 when they met, and he was like, "You should be a model. You should be an actress. You're so beautiful." And so he writes her a $8,000 check, and she's like, "Does this guy think I'm a prostitute?" Mind you, she's married at this point. She was 18, but back in the days, some people got married really young. So it's something called dominant submissive, and this intrigued me because it reminded me of the guy I told y'all that I met in the club 2 years ago on Labor Day. And it was just funny. I was like, yo, I have to do a YouTube video on this. So the guy name was Alfred Bloomingdale. He was married. He had a family. And so the wife was aware of what he was doing eventually. At first, I don't think she knew. But basically, he was like, I presume he might have been a billionaire, because Bloomingdale's is like really, they also call him the man of the credit card. So he was the one that, like, I guess invented credit cards, or I gotta read up on it. It's just a very interesting story. And it's something called A Beautiful Bad Girl. And so she did not have a father figure, apparently. So he took care of her. Whatever she wanted, she got. Jewelry, cars. And this setting is like from the 70s into the 80s, right? So she died in 84 at 30 years old. So that means she was, because my parents were 28, she was 30, so she was born in 1954. So when she was 18, this was 1972. So yeah, it's like, it's interesting to watch because I didn't even know this was going on in the 70s. It's so educational to me. Like when they say it's nothing new under the sun, it really isn't. So this man had whips, chains. He would beat women, but they kind of liked it. And she said that the first encounter, when she first came to the house, she saw a woman dressed in leather, and she thought it was odd, but she just kept following her. And he tied these women up, and he told her straight up, like, yeah, I'm married, I have a family, but this is my second house where I do what I want, and I invite special guests like you. So she was like, well, what the hell? Like, what do you want from me? He's like, I will pay you and give you whatever you want. You can have an apartment. I'll pay for your apartment, whatever. But you have to be my, you got to be submissive. I'm the dominant. And I'm like, oh my God, that's what that nigga said. So what is a dominant? A dominant is a man that wants to have sex with you, and he'll buy you anything you want. Kind of like a sugar daddy, but except he controls your entire life. So she wasn't able to get a job or go to school because he is the dominant. So he will call her 10 times a day, whatever. And I'm like, you know what? That's kind of like some people's marriages. You have women that can't do anything, and their husband does everything for them. So it's just interesting how that relationship, because in all actuality, the only difference between the hoes or the prostitutes and the wife is that the wife paraded around him. He was proud of his wife. Like everybody knew about the wife, but they didn't know about this secret life that he had with the alleged prostitutes. And I say alleged because I don't think these girls were prostitutes. He was just picking them up from public places, and they were easy targets because they didn't have any goals. Like, there's one thing I could truly say, I've interacted with men with money, and I've said this on my channel, not to brag, but I don't get impressed with money because I had a father figure in my life. I still have him in my life. I have goals, and what I've seen from my own eyes, when a man pays for everything for you, there's a price to pay for that. You pay it with your sometimes your life, but sometimes your self-esteem. And I've seen it, unfortunately, growing up. So I could never put myself in a position where a man is completely like in charge of me, because I know what that looks like and it's not pretty. So yeah, he's paying for everything, but he's going to treat you like property, because essentially that's what you are. You are. Once you put yourself in a position where a man is taking care of you financially 100%, to the point that you can't even get your hair done without his input, he is going to treat you like property. He's going to tell you to your face, I paid for this couch. I paid for this TV. I paid for this. I paid for that. And honestly, he has a right to, because he did pay for it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like, think of it, if you're taking care of somebody, right? And they come out their face and say something, as a human being, you're going to remind them it's your shit. So that's why I could never put myself in that position, because what's the difference? And like, you can comment, like, and subscribe. What is the difference between a kept woman, right? His wife was kept, and the prostitute, alleged prostitute. You know what the difference is the fact that a wife is more honorable and a mistress is not. His wife, everybody loved his wife. She's looking fabulous in the wigs and the dresses. She's Mrs. Bloomingdale, right? But she was a kept bitch. And the difference also is she had enough self-respect to say, I'm not doing all those sexual things for you. So things like anal sex, most men, even today in 2025, most men are not going to ask their wives for anal sex, but they're going to ask the side chick, would you like to do anal sex? Also, most men, they're going to ask their side chick for a threesome. They will never ask their wife for a threesome. So there is like a respect level. There is. Sexual deviancy, getting whipped. Most wives are not going to do that. But men know that they can get away with that with some women, right? You got some wives that's not even going to give oral sex. They'll say it, go to your side bitch for that. I'm not doing that, So the sexual fantasies that he had, he could not do with his wife. So this is why he did that. And I couldn't understand it at first, but this is some good stuff, and it made sense. He had a lot of fantasies. He had all this bottled inside of him. He grew up Roman Catholic, so it's like he married the good girl. And you could see that Mrs. Bloomingdale, you could look at her and see she's classy. She's not doing that stuff, right? So he found it elsewhere, right? He liked young women. This man, 54 years old, he had nothing but young women in his second house. And the second house was the sex house. Yes, it was. Okay, so the interesting thing, though, is he paid for these women. And it's like, you don't have to do all of that. But he chose to, I guess, to keep them quiet. So one day, the wife, she cuts off the allowance of, because I think with Vicki Morgan, I think that was his favorite. And he would often tell her, Vicki Morgan was very intelligent. I have to get her book. So Vicki Morgan was able to testify in court. When her allowance and money stopped and she could no longer afford her luxury apartment. And when I say luxury, she was living nice. Like, they didn't say where she was living, but your girl lived in a luxury apartment. She had cars. She had, she was wearing the Bloomingdales because that's his store, right? Imagine wearing Bloomingdale clothes every day. That's a high life by choice, right? You could wear the sweatpants or whatever. But to wear Bloomingdale's clothes all the time, fur coats, cars, she wanted it, she got it. Whatever. Going to the spa every day. Those of us that's regular people, we go to the spa once in a blue, I go like every 6 months. This girl was going many times as she could, as she wanted to. She was also married, and what happened was Alfred wrote her husband a check. If you leave her alone, I'm gonna give you this amount of money. I forget the amount of money, but homeboy went with it. And I was like, wow. And it's like, some people might say, oh, that's not a real man. But if you're dirt poor, and when I say dirt poor, like, you have to understand the 80s and the 70s, everybody was poor. Most people were very poor. Vicki Morgan was about to get evicted when she met Bloomingdale. So he knew to approach her, not just because her age, but she's about to think about it. You about to get evicted out your apartment. I've never been in that situation, but you're about to get evicted. This man is Mr. Bloomingdale. And during that time, Bloomingdale, people still shop at Bloomingdale's, but most people are like, nobody cares about Bloomingdale. You have to understand, in the 70s, Bloomingdale's was at its peak, right? So you meet this guy, like right now, who's like that's like meeting Tyler Perry in the street. And he's like, come to my house, $8,000. For some people, it'd be hard for them to turn that down, right? So, yeah, she's like, whoa, $8,000. The husband, whatever, he's like, yo, I'm gonna give you this amount of money to leave her alone. She's mine now. He went with it. I think he gave it like close to $1 million. And back then in the 70s, that was a lot of money. $1 million is a lot of money. I think I forgot what exactly the amount he gave him, but it was enough for him to leave her alone, file for divorce and whatever. So she was a very smart young lady as far as when her money stopped, because the wife was like, oh, get the fuck out of here. You're not just cheating on me. You buying this bitch cars and furs. So I don't blame the wife. She cut that allowance. So when that happened, Vicki Morgan was like, she went to court and she filed for polygamy. Or polynomy. So she came to court and was like, yes, I knew he was married. She was able to articulate to say, he told me I was his second wife. This girl was brilliant. I gotta read her book. But she knew what to say in court to get her money. So she got her money back. I'm like, I know that's right. She's like, get the fuck out of here. For 12 years, she was living nice. So she was like, oh no, Now, unfortunately, she won the case, but they only gave her $500,000, which is gonna stretch but so much. So she couldn't live in a luxury apartment no more, but she still had a car, and she rented an apartment, like a regular apartment, from a man named Marvin. Now, this is where things get a little bit tricky, and a lot of people are blaming her for her murder, victim blaming, and this is the sad part. So Marcosta or Marvin, his name starts with an M. So he was a landlord of a building, and he was gay. So they were the best of friends. Now, I wanted to rewind it, but it doesn't allow me to rewind. I don't know if it's because of Prime or whatever, but I couldn't understand why people were in the because it's like a docu-series. So it's only one episode, it's called Passion Kills. But what I couldn't understand is people were blaming her. They're like, oh, she came from a dominant, submissive relationship with Bloomingdale and brought it into her relationship with the gay guy. Now, they didn't have sex because he was gay, but they had a friendship, and he would like rub her feet and do things for her. They never dated. So the way it seems to me, he probably offered to rub her feet. He ends up killing her with a bat. He was mentally ill. It was said that he was schizophrenic. And so back in the days, you have to understand, in the 80s, people didn't take mental illness seriously. Obviously, if you know someone is mental, you're not going to rent an apartment from them, right? So she probably like, whatever, he gay, what he gonna do to me, right? They become friends, they become close, but they never had sex because, he's gay. One day he snaps and he beats her with a bat. He beat her to death. And they asked him, well, why did you do this? And he says, she wasn't sleeping and I just wanted to put her to sleep. So he was out of it. Like, he was just out of it. And comment, like, and subscribe. Do you think that she used him? Because people are saying on this docuseries that she became the master. So she had a master, and you have to understand, with the dominant and submissive situation, you become a sex slave. So with Bloomingdale, when he wanted sex at 3 a.m, she had sex with him. Like, it's like this. So he was the master, she was the slave. But a high-paid slave, because your girl was rolling in the car. Yo, she had furs, she had cars, she had the luxury apartment, and she was living good. And the sex was bomb, so I don't see what the problem or issue was. But somebody that's like, whatever, they look at it as it's something bad because she wasn't the only woman. I would love, it's too bad she's deceased, but I would love to hear her side of things, because I feel like with this whole story, I gotta read the book. I need to see her perspective, because who's to say she wasn't in love with him? Who's to say they didn't have a bond or whatever? Most people might say, oh, well, he abused her because he spanked her. But they said it in the thing that she liked it. So I don't see what there's two consenting adults. Okay, he a little old, a lot older than her, like 54, 18, damn. But it's like, why the judgment? You know, at the end of the day, that's a little weird, yes. But who's to say she wasn't happy? Who's to say, you know what I'm saying? She probably was using him, but I think she probably cared about him and vice versa. You know, maybe they had a go. Who knows? But the fact that she was murdered in the way she was by her friend, you know, people assume like, oh, she was using him and he would do things for her, and so he got tired of it and killed her. That's an assumption. You know, he also is deceased. He died in prison for her murder 7 years later from complications from AIDS. He had AIDS, and he was gay, and AIDS was very rapid back then, and if you were middle class or poor, they died from it. White and black people were dying from AIDS left and right. And so what I think happened is, when he found out he had AIDS, he snapped and took it out on her. That's my opinion. I don't think he killed her because she used him. That's an assumption. We don't have any details. There's no evidence that she used him other than, okay, he used to rub her feet. There's a lot of men that like to rub feet. There's a lot of men that like to do things for women, you know. And he was gay. This is my thing. He was gay. They never had sex. So what is the problem? They had a friendship, you know. So I can't wait to get the book. It's called Beautiful Bad Girl, Vicki Morgan story, the mistress of Alfred Bloomingdale. Like, this story is just so incredible. They should make a movie one day. It's like, they really need to. When the wife found out, I feel like the wife probably knew. There's no way she didn't know that he had this extra house and having all these alleged prostitutes. These girls weren't prostitutes before him, but he paid these women to have sex with him, and so he could beat them, right? And also, comment, we grown on this channel. Do you feel like it is a bad thing to have that type of relationship if it's consensual? These were adult women. She was 18, so maybe he groomed her. But what about the other women that were in the house? That they were in their 20s, 30s, whatever. Does a man have a right to do this if it's consensual? If it's consensual, he wasn't forcing them. This was not an R. Kelly situation where he was forcing them, okay? These women were not forced. They were in his house. He was doing this to them, and they were well aware of it. She eventually was removed from the house, because this is my thing. I feel like if it really was a dominant, submissive sex slave situation, he would have never given her nice clothes. He would make her wear the same clothes over and over and be dirty, right? If it was a slave situation. So that's why I'm confused. Like, how is it a slave situation when she had a luxury apartment, driving cars, furs, whatever she wanted, she got it. Some $2,000, sunglasses. The girl was living good. He would take her places. They went on vacations. That don't sound like no slave to me. A slave is someone who is locked up in some dungeon somewhere and can't go nowhere and beaten. He would beat her, but from her own admission, it felt good. He would only hit her during sex, right? When they didn't have sex, they had an amazing time. They went shopping. He was romantic. Yeah, So comment, like, and subscribe. Dominant and Submissive. Have y'all heard about it? I know I mentioned it before. 50 Shades of Grey is real. It's a movie, but it's real. You do have rich men out here that are into kinky sex and women that are into that too. When they're intimate with a man, they want to feel like, submissive, whatever. What y'all think about that? Comment, like, and subscribe. The book is called A Beautiful Bad Girl, Vicki Morgan, the mistress of Alfred Bloomingdale. And again, that's on Prime, called Passion Kills. That's the name of the TV show, and the name of the channel or whatever is Love Kills. But the name of the show is Passion Kills on Prime. And those are my thoughts.